Get ready for an extraordinary story that proves kindness is the most powerful currency in the world. You're about to witness Waitress paid for a stranger's coffee. On the receipt, the CEO wrote, "I need you on my team." An incredible tale of compassion, opportunity, and the life-changing power of small gestures. Before we begin this inspiring journey, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell. Your support helps us share more of these amazing stories that remind us how a single moment of kindness can transform everything. Now let's dive into this unforgettable story. The morning rush at Rosie's Cafe in downtown Boston was in full swing. Steam hissed from the espresso machine, orders flew from the kitchen, and the bell above the door chimed constantly as customers streamed in seeking their caffeine fix before another day in the financial district. Sarah Mitchell moved between tables with practiced grace, coffee pot in one hand, order pad in the other, smile firmly in place despite the exhaustion pulling at her bones. At 32, she'd been waitressing for 8 years, the last 3 at Rosie's, where the tips were decent and the owner, Rosie herself, was kind enough to work around Sarah's complicated schedule. "Order up, Sarah," called Tony from the kitchen. Sarah grabbed the plates, balancing them expertly as she navigated the packed dining room. Table 6 got their omelets, Table 12 their pancakes, and she was refilling coffee for the regulars at the counter when she noticed him. He sat alone at Table 3, staring at his phone with an expression she recognized all too well, the look of someone receiving bad news that kept getting worse. His coffee sat untouched, growing cold. His suit was expensive but wrinkled, like he'd slept in it, and there was a defeated slump to his shoulders that made him look older than he probably was. Sarah had seen that look in her own mirror too many times. After her husband's death 2 years ago, after the medical bills started piling up, after she'd had to explain to her 9-year-old son Tyler why they were moving to a smaller apartment again, she grabbed the coffee pot and approached his table. "Can I warm that up for you?" The man looked up, startled. He had grey eyes that were red-rimmed, whether from exhaustion or tears, she couldn't tell. "Oh, yes, thank you." As she poured, she noticed his hands shaking slightly. "Rough morning?" He laughed, but it was hollow. "Rough year, actually, but yes, particularly rough morning." Sarah should have moved on. She had 6 other tables to manage, but something made her linger. "The blueberry muffins are fresh. On the house. Sometimes sugar helps." "That's kind of you, but—" "No buts. Rosie makes them herself, best in Boston." She was already heading to the counter, returning with a warm muffin and a pat of butter. "There. That's better." The man looked at the muffin, then at her, and his eyes welled up. "You don't even know me." "Don't need to. I know that look. Whatever it is, it gets better. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually." Before he could respond, Tony was calling for her again and she was off, tending to other customers. But she kept an eye on Table 3, watching as the man slowly ate the muffin, sipped his fresh coffee, seemed to pull himself together piece by piece. When he finally asked for his check, Sarah printed it out and started to walk over. Then she stopped. She recognized the credit card he'd placed on the table, a basic bank card, not the platinum or black cards most of her financial district customers carried. She looked at his shoes, noted they were worn despite the expensive suit. Recent hard times, she guessed. Maybe a job loss, maybe worse. Making a decision that went against every practical instinct, Sarah voided his check and paid for his breakfast herself. $7.50. It would mean no lunch for her today, but she'd managed on less. She walked back to his table. "You're all set." He looked confused. "But I haven't paid." "Already taken care of." "I don't understand." Sarah smiled. "Someone did this for me once when I really needed it. They told me to pass it on when I could. So I'm passing it on." The man stared at her, then at the receipt she'd placed on the table. "You paid for my breakfast? You don't even know me." Sometimes that's when kindness matters most. When it comes from a stranger, no strings attached. "I can't accept this. Please let me pay." "Already done. Can't reverse it now." She winked. "Rosie's very strict about her register." The man stood, and she saw he was younger than she'd thought, maybe late 30s, but stress had aged him. "What's your name?" "Sarah." "Sarah." He repeated it like he was memorizing it. "I'm Michael. Michael Harrison. And this—" he gestured helplessly. "This means more than you know. We all need a little kindness sometimes, Michael. Take care of yourself." She turned to go, but he called after her. "Sarah, That rough year I mentioned? My company just went under. Bankruptcy. 40 employees without jobs. My fault, my failure. His voice cracked. I was sitting here trying to figure out how to face them today. How to tell them I'd failed them. Sarah turned back. Did you try your best? Yes. Did you act with integrity? Always. Then you didn't fail. Sometimes things just don't work out despite our best efforts. That's not failure, that's life. And those 40 employees, they knew the risks. They chose to work for you. That says something about the kind of leader you were. Michael's eyes filled again. You really believe that? I do. My husband used to run a small construction company. When the recession hit, he had to close it. Spent months beating himself up about letting his crew down. You know what they did? Every single one showed up to help when he got sick. Not because he'd been their boss, but because he'd been a good man who'd done his best by them. That's what matters. Your husband sounds like a good man. He was. Sarah's voice softened. Cancer took him 2 years ago, left me with a mountain of debt and a son who asks why Daddy had to go to heaven. So yeah, I know about rough years. Michael sat back down heavily. And you're buying strangers coffee, with everything you're dealing with, especially because of everything I'm dealing with. Kindness is sometimes the only thing we can control, the only currency that really matters. Before Michael could respond, Rosie's voice boomed across the cafe. Sarah, I don't pay you to chat up the customers. Sarah grinned. That's my cue. Have a good day, Michael. It will get better. She hurried back to work, missing the way Michael pulled out a pen and wrote something lengthy on the receipt, missing him carefully folding it and leaving it under the salt shaker, missing the way he looked back at her one more time before leaving. The morning rush continued for another 2 hours. Sarah's feet ached, her back screamed, and she'd spilled syrup on her apron, but the tips were good. Good enough that maybe she could afford to grab Tyler the new sneakers he needed. It wasn't until she was clearing table 3 that she found the receipt. At first, she thought Michael had forgotten it. Then she saw the writing covering the back. Sarah, your kindness this morning saved me in ways you'll never fully understand. I was ready to give up. On everything. Your $7.50 reminded me that good people still exist, that kindness still matters, that failure isn't the end. I'm going to tell my employees the truth today, help them find new positions and then figure out my next chapter. Because you're right, it will get better. Below that, in different ink, like he'd come back to add it, P.S. I know this is unconventional, but I'm starting something new, something built on the kind of values you showed today. I need people like you on my team. If you're ever looking for a change, please call. You deserve so much more than minimum wage and sore feet. Michael Harrison. His phone number was written below. Sarah stared at the note, rereading it 3 times. It had to be a joke, or the desperate rambling of a man having a breakdown. CEOs didn't recruit waitresses who bought them coffee. That wasn't how the world worked. She pocketed the receipt and tried to forget about it. But that night after Tyler was asleep, she found herself Googling Michael Harrison. The results made her stomach drop. Michael Harrison, former CEO of Harrison Technologies, a startup that had once been valued at $50 million. Articles about their innovative approach to sustainable packaging. Then, more recent articles about their bankruptcy, about Michael's attempt to save the company, about employees praising his leadership even as the ship went down. He was real. His company had been real. His offer. Could that be real too? She looked around her tiny apartment. The water stain on the ceiling she couldn't afford to fix. Tyler's homework spread on a card table because they didn't have a proper desk. The stack of bills on the counter that never seemed to shrink. Then she looked at Tyler's school photo on the refrigerator. He was smiling, but she could see the worry in his eyes that no 9-year-old should carry. He'd grown up too fast after Tom's death, trying to be the man of the house, telling her not to worry about the things he wanted because he knew they couldn't afford them. Sarah fingered the receipt with Michael's number. What did she have to lose? The next morning before her shift, she called. Hello? The voice was clearer than yesterday, stronger. Michael, this is Sarah. From Rosie's Cafe? There was a pause, then warmth flooded his voice. Sarah, I wasn't sure you'd call. I wasn't sure I should. Your note. Was that real, the job offer? Very real. Can we meet? Not at Rosie's. Somewhere we can actually talk. I have a shift this afternoon, but I could do coffee this morning. Around 10. Perfect. Do you know Chapter's bookstore on Newbury? They have a quiet cafe inside. I'll be there." Sarah hung up, her heart racing. What was she doing? She was a waitress with a high school education. She'd never worked in an office, never used anything more complicated than a cash register and coffee machine. But she went anyway. Chapters was the kind of place Sarah usually hurried past, too upscale for her budget. Michael was already there, looking completely different from yesterday. His suit was crisp, his eyes clear, his whole bearing more confident. "You look better," Sarah said, sitting across from him. "I feel better. I took your advice. Met with my employees yesterday. Told them everything. You know what they did? They applauded, said it had been an honor to work for me. 3 of them want to join my next venture, whatever it is. That's wonderful. It's because of you. That coffee, that muffin, your words. They reminded me that failure is just a chapter, not the whole story." A waitress appeared, and Michael ordered for both of them, insisting Sarah get whatever she wanted. She asked for just coffee, uncomfortable with him spending money on her. "So," Michael said once they were alone, "tell me about yourself, your background, your experience." Sarah laughed nervously. "I think you've got the wrong idea about me. I'm just a waitress. High school diploma, no college, no corporate experience. I've been serving coffee for 8 years. I disagree. I think you're someone who reads people instantly, who manages multiple complex tasks simultaneously, who maintains grace under extreme pressure, and who has enough emotional intelligence to know exactly what a stranger needs to hear on their worst day." Sarah blinked, surprised. That's just being a waitress." "No, that's being exceptional at a job most people couldn't do. Do you know how many MBAs I've hired who couldn't handle the breakfast rush at Rosie's? Who couldn't juggle 6 tables, remember 15 orders, calculate tips in their head, and still have energy to be kind to a stranger? But I don't know anything about business. You know about people. That's what business really is. Everything else can be taught." Michael leaned forward. "I'm starting something new, a consulting firm focused on corporate restructuring with compassion, helping failing companies not just with numbers and strategy, but with the human element, keeping dignity intact, finding soft landings for employees, building bridges instead of burning them. That sounds amazing, but I don't see how. I need someone who understands struggle. Someone who knows what it's like to make impossible choices, to keep smiling when everything's falling apart, to find grace in difficult moments. I watched you yesterday morning. You didn't just serve coffee. You managed emotions, solved problems, created moments of connection. That's what I need." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "Michael, I appreciate this, but I have a son. I can't take risks. I need steady income, health insurance. Starting salary would be 60,000, full benefits. Flexible hours to accommodate your son's schedule. If you need to leave early for school events or stay home when he's sick, that's fine. I'm building a company that understands people have lives outside work." 60,000. That was more than double what she made at Rosie's, even with tips. "I don't even have appropriate clothes for an office. There's a signing bonus to cover that." "Michael, Sarah, let me be very clear. This isn't charity. This isn't me paying you back for yesterday. This is me recognizing talent when I see it, and being smart enough to grab it before someone else does." Sarah's hand shook as she lifted her coffee cup. "What would I actually do? Initially, help me build the company culture, interview potential clients, help me understand their real needs beyond the spreadsheets. Eventually, I see you running our entire client relations division. You don't even know if I can do it. I know you bought a stranger coffee when you probably couldn't afford it. I know you saw past my expensive suit to recognize someone in pain. I know you found exactly the right words to keep me from giving up. That tells me everything I need to know." Sarah thought about Tyler, about the apartment, about the bills. Then she thought about Tom, what he would say. He'd always believed she was capable of more than she gave herself credit for. "When would I start?" she heard herself asking. Michael's face broke into the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. "How about 2 weeks? Give Rosie notice, get yourself settled." "Okay," Sarah said, hardly believing the word coming out of her mouth. "Okay, yes." Michael extended his hand across the table, and Sarah shook it, feeling like she was shaking hands with her future. "Welcome to Harrison Consulting, Sarah Mitchell." "Harrison Consulting? You're keeping the name?" "No point running from failure. Better to own it and build something better from the ashes." 2 weeks later, Sarah stood outside a modest office building in Cambridge, wearing a new blazer she'd bought with the signing bonus, holding a box of personal items to decorate her desk. Her desk. She had a desk. The office was small, just 3 rooms and a reception area, but it was bright and clean with large windows overlooking the Charles River. Michael was already there, setting up computers. "Sarah, welcome to day 1. He showed her around, explaining his vision. The 3 employees from his previous company would start next week. They had 2 potential clients already, both small companies struggling to stay afloat. "This is your office," Michael said, opening a door. Sarah gasped. Not a cubicle, but an actual office with a window, a desk, a computer, and a photo frame waiting to be filled. "Michael, this is too much. This is exactly right. You're not an entry-level employee, Sarah. You're a founding member of this company. That means something." The first weeks were overwhelming. Sarah had to learn new software, understand basic business principles, figure out how to write professional emails. But Michael was patient, and the other employees, when they arrived, were supportive rather than judgmental about her background. "Michael told us how you two met," said James, the CFO. "That took guts, paying for his coffee, and insight, seeing he needed it." "It was just coffee," Sarah protested. "No," said Linda, head of operations. "It was recognizing humanity in a moment when most people would have just seen another customer. That's a gift." If you're moved by this story of kindness and opportunity, please remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss what happens next in Sarah's incredible journey. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest changes. Their first client meeting was with the owner of a small manufacturing company on the verge of bankruptcy. Michael brought Sarah along, introducing her as their client relations director. The owner, Mr. Peterson, was a lot like Michael had been that morning at Rosie's, defeated, ashamed, ready to give up. "I've failed everyone," he said. 30 families depend on me, and I've let them down." Sarah leaned forward. "Can I ask you something, Mr. Peterson? Why did you start this company?" "My father was laid off from a factory when I was 15. No warning, no severance. I watched him struggle to find work, saw what it did to his pride. I swore I'd create a place where people were treated better." "And have you treated them better?" "I've tried. We have profit sharing, good benefits. I know every employee's name, their kids' names." "Then you haven't failed them. You've hit a rough patch, but that's not the same as failure." Sarah pulled out a folder. "Michael and I have been looking at your numbers, but more importantly, we've been looking at your values. Companies built on genuine care for employees, those are worth saving." Mr. Peterson's eyes welled up. "You really think it can be saved?" Michael took over, outlining a restructuring plan that would require sacrifices but could keep the company alive and all 30 employees working. But it was Sarah who Mr. Peterson kept looking at, Sarah who seemed to give him hope. After the meeting, as they walked back to their car, Michael said, "You were brilliant in there. I just told him what someone once told me, that trying your best and failing isn't really failure. See? Natural talent." 6 months into the job, Sarah had found her rhythm. She'd helped save 12 small businesses, each one keeping dozens of people employed. Her son Tyler had noticed the change in her, not just the financial relief, but the confidence, the purpose. "You smile more, Mum," he'd said one evening as she helped with homework at their new kitchen table in their new apartment. Still modest, but without water stains or drafts. "Do I?" "Yeah, like Dad used to after a good day at work. Really smile, not just pretend smile." That night, Sarah called Michael. It was late, but she knew he'd be working. "Sarah, everything okay?" "Everything's great. I wanted to thank you for taking a chance on me." "You took a chance on me first," Michael reminded her. "That $750 investment has returned about 1,000% so far." Sarah laughed. "Is everything a business metaphor with you?" "Not everything. Sometimes a cup of coffee is just kindness, and sometimes kindness is everything." A year in, Harrison Consulting had grown to 15 employees and had saved 43 companies from bankruptcy. They'd been featured in the Boston Globe as a new model for compassionate capitalism. The reporter had asked Sarah about her background, clearly expecting an MBA from Harvard or MIT. When she said she'd been a waitress, the reporter's eyebrows shot up. "Mr. Harrison recruited you from a cafe." He recognized that serving people, really serving them, understanding their needs, treating them with dignity regardless of their circumstances, that's a skill that translates everywhere. The article ran with the headline, "From Coffee to Consulting, How a Waitress Became the Heart of Boston's Most Innovative Firm." Rosie had it framed and hung in the cafe. Sarah was in her office, preparing for a client meeting, when Michael knocked. "Got a minute?" "Always." He sat down, looking nervous in a way she hadn't seen since that first morning at the cafe. "Sarah, I need to tell you something. These past 18 months, working with you, building this company together, it's been the best period of my professional life. Mine too, but also personal life. You've become important to me, more than just as a colleague." Sarah's heart skipped. She'd felt it too, the growing connection, but had ignored it, afraid of complicating their professional relationship. "Michael, I know it's complicated. You work for me, technically. There are a dozen reasons why this is a bad idea. But Sarah, I've fallen for you. Your kindness, your strength, the way you see the best in people, even when they can't see it themselves." Sarah stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Charles River. "Tyler asked me the other day if you were my boyfriend. What did you tell him? That you were my boss and my friend. Is that all you want me to be?" Sarah turned to face him. "No, but Michael, I've lost someone I loved. I know how much that hurts. And Tyler's lost his father. I can't put either of us through that again unless what? Unless it's real. Unless it's built on something solid. Something more than just gratitude or proximity." Michael stood and crossed to her, taking her hands. "Sarah, what we have is built on the most solid foundation there is. Mutual respect and genuine care. You saw me at my absolute worst and chose to help. I've watched you transform not just your own life, but dozens of others. This isn't gratitude, this is love." Sarah looked into his eyes, the same eyes that had been so lost that morning at Rosie's, now clear and full of purpose. "I need to think about it and talk to Tyler. Take all the time you need, I'm not going anywhere." That evening, Sarah sat Tyler down for a serious conversation. "How would you feel if Michael and I started dating?" Tyler's face lit up. "For real? That would be awesome. He already comes to my games and helps with homework. It would be like having a dad again. Not replacing Dad," he added quickly, "but having someone. You've thought about this?" "Mom, I'm 10, not stupid. You guys look at each other all googly-eyed." "It's kind of gross, but also nice." Sarah laughed and hugged her son. "When did you get so wise? When you started being happy again." The next morning, Sarah arrived at the office early. Michael was already there, as always, working on his computer. "Yes," she said from his doorway. He looked up, confused. "Yes? Yes to us trying. Yes to seeing where this goes. Yes to taking the risk." Michael's face broke into a brilliant smile. He stood, crossed to her, and kissed her softly. "I promise to be worthy of that, yes. You already are. You have been since you wrote that note on the receipt." Their relationship evolved naturally, built on the foundation of friendship and mutual respect they'd already established. Tyler adored Michael, who never tried to replace Tom but carved out his own space in their lives. The company continued to grow. They opened offices in New York and Philadelphia. Sarah was promoted to Vice President of Client Relations, a title that still made her laugh sometimes. "Remember when you didn't even know what a spreadsheet was?" Michael teased one evening as she reviewed financial projections. "Remember when you were too depressed to drink your coffee?" she shot back. Touché. 3 years after that first morning at Rosie's, Michael took Sarah and Tyler to the cafe for breakfast. Rosie herself served them, winking at Sarah. "Table 3, Michael requested specifically. As they sat down, Sarah noticed all the staff watching them with barely contained excitement. "What's going on?" she asked. Michael pulled out a receipt. "Do you recognize this?" It was the original receipt from that first day, his note still visible on the back. "You kept it?" "Of course I kept it. It changed my life." He got down on one knee, right there in the cafe, pulling out a ring. "Sarah Mitchell, you bought me coffee when I was at my lowest. You gave me hope when I had none. You've built a company with me, a life with me. Will you marry me?" The entire cafe erupted in cheers before she even answered. "Yes," she said through tears. "Yes, absolutely yes." Tyler jumped up and hugged them both. "Does this mean I can call you Dad now?" "If you want to," Michael said, his own eyes wet. "I want to." The wedding was held at Rosie's Cafe after hours, with the whole Harrison consulting team and their clients in attendance. Mr. Peterson, whose company was now thriving, gave a toast about how Sarah had saved not just his business, but his faith in humanity. Rosie herself officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion. "I've seen a lot of love stories play out in this cafe," she said, "but none quite like this one. A cup of coffee, a muffin, $7.50, and two people brave enough to see each other's worth when the rest of the world might have walked by. As they exchanged vows, Sarah thought about the journey from that morning 3 years ago. How a moment of kindness had rippled outward, creating jobs, saving companies, building a family. "You gave me $7.50, Michael said in his vows. "I can never repay that debt, not because of the money, but because of what it represented. You saw me as human when I felt worthless. You gave when you had little to give. You changed the trajectory of my life with simple kindness." "You gave me opportunity," Sarah replied in hers. "But more than that, you gave me belief in myself. You saw potential where others saw just a waitress. You took a chance on someone with no qualifications except compassion. You changed my life by seeing who I could be, not just who I was." 5 years later, Harrison Consulting had become one of the most respected firms in the country, known for their compassionate approach to business challenges. They'd saved over 300 companies and thousands of jobs. Sarah, now executive vice president, was invited to speak at Harvard Business School about their unconventional approach to corporate consulting. "Traditional business says emotion has no place in the boardroom," she told the packed auditorium. "We disagree. We believe that recognizing the human element in business isn't weakness, it's strength. Every spreadsheet represents people's livelihoods. Every decision affects families. When you remember that, you make better choices." A student raised her hand. "Is it true you were a waitress before joining Harrison Consulting?" "It's true, and I'm proud of it. Being a waitress taught me to read people, to juggle multiple priorities, to stay calm under pressure, to find energy for kindness, even when exhausted. These aren't skills you learn in business school. They're skills you learn by serving others." Another student asked, "What advice would you give to someone from a non-traditional background trying to break into consulting?" Sarah smiled. "Find leaders who value character over credentials, and never underestimate the power of kindness. My entire career started with buying a stranger coffee. $7.50 changed my life." After the talk, Michael met her outside. Tyler, now 15 and taller than both of them, was with him. "You killed it in there, Mom," Tyler said, hugging her. "Language," she corrected automatically, though she was smiling. "You did kill it," Michael agreed. "I've never been prouder." As they walked across Harvard's campus, Sarah's phone buzzed. It was a message from a young woman who'd heard about their company's origin story. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm a barista at a coffee shop in Seattle. Yesterday a customer was crying over his laptop, and I bought his coffee and told him about you and Mr. Harrison. He turned out to be a venture capitalist. He offered me a job. Thank you for showing that kindness matters in business." Sarah showed the message to Michael and Tyler. "The ripples keep spreading," Michael said. "From one cup of coffee," Tyler added. That evening, back at their home in Cambridge, a beautiful but modest house they'd chosen for its big kitchen and backyard, they had their weekly tradition of cooking dinner together. Tyler made his famous pasta sauce, famous within their family anyway. Michael handled the salad, and Sarah made dessert. "I've been thinking," Michael said as they cooked, "we should start a program, identifying service workers with exceptional people skills and offering them business training and opportunities." "The Coffee Cup Initiative," Sarah suggested. "Perfect. We could partner with restaurants, cafes, retail stores. Find the people who really understand service and give them chances to move up." "I love it," Tyler chimed in. "You could call it paying it forward, but like, structurally." Sarah laughed. "When did you become a business strategist?" "I've been listening to you two talk shop for 5 years. I've absorbed it by osmosis." "You know what this means?" Michael said. "We need to go back to Rosie's, see if any of the current staff are interested." "Full circle," Sarah agreed. The next morning, they sat in Rosie's cafe at table 3, their table, interviewing servers and baristas who showed that special combination of hustle and heart that Sarah had exemplified. Maria, a young single mother working the morning shift, reminded Sarah so much of herself it was almost eerie. "Why should we consider you for this program?" Michael asked. Maria straightened. "Because I know what it's like to want more, but not have the path. Because I see potential everywhere, in customers, in situations, in myself, but need someone to see it in me too. Because kindness isn't weakness, it's strength, and I'm strong enough to be kind even on the hardest days." Sarah and Michael exchanged glances. They'd found their first candidate. Over the next 2 years, the Coffee Cup Initiative placed 50 service workers into corporate positions, with a 90% success rate. The program was featured on 60 Minutes, with Sarah and Michael telling their story on national television. "It started with $7.50, the interviewer said, seeming amazed. "No," Sarah corrected. "It started with seeing someone's humanity. The money was just the gesture. The real gift was recognition, seeing each other as people worthy of kindness and opportunity." The interview went viral, spawning thousands of similar acts of kindness in cafes and restaurants across the country. The coffee cup kindness became a trending hashtag, with people sharing stories of small gestures that led to big changes. Tyler, now 17 and applying to colleges, wrote his admissions essay about watching his mother transform from an exhausted waitress to a business leader, but never losing the compassion that defined her. "She taught me that success isn't about climbing the ladder," he wrote. "It's about building a ladder wide enough for others to climb with you." He was accepted to MIT, planning to study business and social innovation. The night before he left for college, the three of them sat at their kitchen table, the same one where they'd shared hundreds of dinners, homework sessions, and family meetings. "I'm proud of you," Sarah told Tyler. "So proud it hurts." "I learned from the best," Tyler replied. "Both of you. You showed me that families can be built from tragedy, that careers can be born from kindness, that love can grow from the most unexpected moments." "You're going to change the world, kid," Michael said, ruffling Tyler's hair like he'd done since he was 10. "We all already have," Tyler pointed out, "one cup of coffee at a time." 10 years after that first morning at Rosie's, Harrison Consulting went public. The IPO was modest by Wall Street standards, but significant for what it represented. A company built on compassion, succeeding in a cutthroat world. Sarah rang the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange, with Michael on one side and Tyler, home from MIT, on the other. In the crowd below, she spotted Maria, now a regional manager, and dozens of other Coffee Cup Initiative graduates. "From waitress to Wall Street," Michael whispered in her ear. "From broken CEO to billionaire," she whispered back. "We make a good team. The best team." That afternoon, after all the ceremonies and interviews, Sarah insisted they stop at a small cafe in Lower Manhattan. She ordered 3 coffees, then paid for the order of the stressed-looking young man behind them in line. "Why?" he asked, confused. "Because someone did it for me once, and it changed my life. Maybe it'll change yours too." She handed him a business card. "If you're ever looking for a different opportunity, call us. We believe in investing in people, not just credentials." The man looked at the card, then at Sarah. "Harrison Consulting, you're Sarah Harrison." "Sarah Mitchell Harrison, yes. I read about you in business school. You're the waitress who became a VP. Executive chairman now," Michael corrected with pride. "And still buying coffee for strangers," Sarah added. "Some things shouldn't change, no matter how much everything else does." As they left the cafe, Tyler linked arms with both his parents. "So you know what I love most about our family story." "What's that?" Sarah asked. "It proves that kindness isn't just nice, it's powerful. It's revolutionary. It's the best business strategy there is." "From the mouths of babes," Michael said. "I'm 22, Dad, hardly a babe." "You'll always be our baby," Sarah said, then looked at Michael. "Though maybe not our only one for much longer." Michael stopped walking. "Are you—" Sarah nodded, hand moving to her still flat stomach. 8 weeks. I wanted to wait until after the IPO to tell you." Michael swept her into a hug, lifting her off her feet. Tyler whooped and joined the embrace. "Another little Mitchell Harrison," Michael said in wonder. "Another soul to teach about the power of kindness," Sarah added. "Another person to carry on the coffee tradition," Tyler laughed. 6 months later, Sarah gave birth to Emma Rosie Harrison, named after the cafe that started it all. Rosie herself came to the hospital, crying as she held the baby. "This little one exists because of a cup of coffee," she marveled. "Everything good in my life exists because of that cup of coffee," Sarah corrected. The company continued to grow, but more importantly, the movement they'd started grew. Companies across the country began recruiting from non-traditional backgrounds. Business schools added courses on compassionate leadership. The Coffee Cup Initiative became a national program with federal funding. Michael and Sarah were invited to the White House to receive an award for innovative business practices that strengthened communities. As they stood in the Oval Office, Sarah thought about the morning she'd almost not picked up that extra shift at Rosie's because she was so tired. One different choice, and none of this would have happened. "What are you thinking about?" Michael asked as they walked through the rose garden afterward. Butterfly effects. How the smallest actions can create the biggest changes. $7.50, Michael said, their private shorthand for miraculous small beginnings. Best investment I ever made, Sarah replied. Tyler, who joined them for the ceremony, now worked for Harrison Consulting's Innovation Lab, developing new ways to identify and nurture unconventional talent. He'd inherited Sarah's gift for seeing potential and Michael's business acumen. "Mom, Dad," he said, joining them in the garden. "I just got a call. The Seattle branch found their newest recruit, a janitor who's been informally mentoring other night shift workers, helping them study for their GEDs while they work." "Perfect," Sarah said. "That's exactly the kind of person we're looking for. Someone who lifts while they climb," Michael added. That evening, back in Boston, they stopped at Rosie's for dinner. Their table was occupied, but Rosie had kept one item from the original receipt framed on the wall. Table 3, coffee, plus muffin, twice nur $7.50. Kindness, priceless. Below it, she'd added, "At this table, a CEO found hope and a waitress found her future. Never underestimate the power of compassion." A young server approached them, looking frazzled from the dinner rush. Sarah noticed her hands shaking slightly as she took their order. "Rough shift?" Sarah asked gently. The girl, her name tag read Ashley, nodded. "My car broke down this morning, I'm behind on rent, and I just found out my daughter needs dental work I can't afford. Sorry, you don't need to hear this." Sarah looked at Michael, who was already pulling out his business card. "Ashley," Sarah said, "how would you like to hear about an opportunity? It starts with training while you keep your current job, then transitions into a full-time position with benefits that include dental." Ashley's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Completely. I used to work here. This very job, actually. Someone saw potential in me when I was struggling just like you. Now it's my turn to pay it forward. But I'm just a waitress." "No such thing as just anything," Michael said firmly. "Every job has dignity. Every person has potential." Ashley started crying. "This is like a miracle." "No," Sarah said, thinking of that morning so many years ago. "This is just what happens when we remember to see each other as human, when we choose kindness, even when, especially when, things are hard." As they ate their dinner, Sarah watched Ashley serve other customers with renewed energy, hope visible in every movement, another ripple spreading outward from that original splash. "Think she'll make it?" Michael asked. "I think she already has, she just doesn't know it yet." Emma, now 2, was learning to talk in full sentences, and her favorite story was the one about Mommy and Daddy and the magic coffee. Tyler had told it to her so many times she could recite parts herself. "Mommy buy coffee for sad Daddy," she would say. "Daddy give Mommy good job. They fall in love. I born." "That's basically accurate," Tyler would laugh. But Sarah would always correct gently. "Mommy bought coffee for a stranger who needed kindness. Everything else was just beautiful consequence." 20 years had passed since that morning at Rosie's. Harrison Consulting was now an international firm with offices in 12 countries. The Coffee Cup initiative had helped over 10,000 people transition from service industries to corporate careers. Sarah had written a best-selling book called The 750 Principle, How Small Acts of Kindness Create Big Change. But the real measure of success, Sarah thought, wasn't in the numbers or accolades. It was in the faces of people like Maria, now CEO of her own consulting firm, like Ashley, who'd become their head of human resources, like the hundreds of people who'd sent letters saying her story had inspired them to take chances on unlikely candidates. On the 20th anniversary of that first cup of coffee, they held a celebration at Rosie's, which had expanded to 3 locations, but kept its original charm. The morning rush was in full swing when Sarah and Michael arrived with Tyler, his wife Jennifer, whom he'd met at MIT, and Emma, now a precocious 12-year-old who wanted to be a social entrepreneur. Rosie, now in her 80s but still sharp, had decorated table 3 with flowers and a sign, "Reserved for the couple who proved kindness is the best business strategy." As they sat down, their usual orders already waiting, Sarah noticed a familiar scene at the counter. A businessman, clearly distressed, counting change for his coffee. Coming up short, the young barista, one of their newest coffee cup candidates, quietly covered the difference from her tip jar. "Did you see that?" Sarah asked Michael. "I did. Think we should talk to him?" "I think we should let it play out naturally. Not every cup of coffee leads to a business empire." "No," Michael agreed. "Sometimes it just leads to someone having a better day. That's enough too." Emma, wise beyond her years, added, "Every kindness matters, even if we never see the results. That's what you taught me." Tyler raised his coffee cup. "To Mom, who spent $7.50 and gained the world." "To Dad," Sarah countered, "who wrote a note on a receipt and changed our lives." "To Rosie," Michael added, "who created the space where magic could happen." "To Coffee," Emma declared, making them all laugh. "To kindness," they all said together, clinking their cups. As Sarah looked around the table at her family, then out at the busy cafe where other stories were undoubtedly beginning, she thought about how different her life could have been if she'd been too tired to be kind, if she'd been too proud to call the number on the receipt, if she'd been too scared to take the chance. But she hadn't been. She'd chosen kindness when she could barely afford it. She'd chosen courage when she had every reason to play it safe. She'd chosen to believe that a CEO who recruited a waitress with a note on a receipt might actually see something in her worth nurturing. "Mom," Emma asked, "what are you thinking about?" "Just remembering," Sarah said, "and being grateful." "For what?" Tyler asked. "For the reminder that we're all just one act of kindness away from a completely different life. One cup of coffee away from our destiny." "That's pretty deep for a Tuesday morning, Mom," Tyler teased. "Your mother's always been deep," Michael said. "She just disguised it as coffee service for a few years." The bell above the door chimed, and a new customer walked in, looking lost and overwhelmed, checking his phone with a frown. Sarah watched the barista notice, saw her pour a coffee and walk it over to him before he'd even ordered. "On the house," the barista said. "You look like you need it." The man's face transformed with surprise and gratitude. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means today." Sarah and Michael exchanged knowing looks. Another ripple, another beginning, another reminder that kindness was the most powerful force in business and in life. "Should we?" Michael asked, tilting his head toward the man. "No," Sarah said. "Their story gets to unfold however it's meant to. We just proved the principle. Now others get to live it their own way." As they finished their breakfast, talking about company plans, family vacations, and Emma's latest school project on social innovation, Sarah felt the same sense of rightness she'd felt that first morning when she'd decided to pay for a stranger's coffee. Some decisions, she'd learned, you don't make with your head or even your heart. You make them with your soul. In the split second when you choose to see another person's humanity and respond with grace. $7.50. Such a small amount to pay for a life transformed, a family created, an empire built on compassion. But then again, the best investments usually started small. The bell above Rosie's door continued to chime, bringing in new customers, new possibilities, new chances for connection and kindness. And somewhere in that morning rush, Sarah was certain another life-changing moment was brewing. All it would take was someone willing to pay for a stranger's coffee. Thank you for experiencing this incredible journey of how one small act of kindness transformed multiple lives and created a revolution of compassion in the business world. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell to join our community of people who believe in the power of kindness. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that their small acts of compassion matter more than they know. Remember, you're always just one kind gesture away from changing someone's life or having yours changed. Keep spreading kindness, keep believing in humanity, and never underestimate the power of a simple cup of coffee shared with someone in need. Until next time, may your own acts of kindness create ripples that transform the world.